Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Welcome to my new show that I just made up. Not ready for prime time, that's what it's called. So I'm going to go through all the new releases on Amazon Prime Video. See if they're ready for prime time. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Shit you never heard of. There's tons of it. Somebody's got to sift through it. And if you read the reviews, it's all their own parents and their brothers. So this week, because I do this every week, I'm going to be talking about a movie called Monochrome, the Chromism. The chromating, the chromate, methyl chromate, what is it?
Do you know what the problem with this world is? Too many of those damn hues. Those crazy, glowing, mutated freaks!
It's not safe here!
What is wrong with his blood? Why does it look like that?
Shit, you were shot.
Shot? What's happening to my arm?
We don't know yet.
If you see a Hue-affected person, please inform your local authorities immediately so that they can get the proper care and testing at a local facility.
Hunt you to the end of the earth! Hunt begins!
Monochrome, the chromism, is an example of something I call a tricky dick joint. What that means is, well, flashback. First off, the fact that they have colors that they call hues, I don't like that. Hues is not a good name.
We are Hue.
This is not a Borg identification.
If you're playing in a video editor and you want to go from color to black and white, you don't change hue. That doesn't work. See? Look what's happening to the hue, I think. Instead, you change the saturation. So they should be called saturateds instead of unsaturateds. So when judging an indie film, very, very low budget film, you've got to temper your expectations. This is not a giant blockbuster. There's going to be some weird stuff. There's going to be some limitations of the budget. So, budget of this film, $2,000. Lower your bar, okay? Here's my spoiler-free review. You guys ready? It's okay. It's not terrible. It's not funny bad. It's not horribly incompetent. There's some things I have complaints and critiques about, but overall, I was kind of impressed. There's a lot of good sets, a lot of good props. I'm particularly impressed with the masking work. I think the director had to just go basically frame by frame and paint on which sections should be colored in. That had to take forever, and he does a really good job with it. It looks good for the budget. It really does. There's not a lot of like glaringly obvious things that are going to break you out of the story. You're not constantly distracted by like horrible lighting or the camera is crooked or you can't hear anything. Tenet. The main critiques I really have are kind of writing based. Overall, for entertainment value, I give it a 50 out of 100. You have no basis. You don't know what that means. I don't either. I'm just making this up as I go. But in my reviews, we take the score and then we divide it by the budget in millions. Budget of this movie, $2,000. So you take 50, you divide it by 0.002, and you get 25,000 units of good. Compare that to Rise of Skywalker, which had a budget of $275 million. And the total score for Rise of Skywalker was 0.105. So this movie is 238,000 times better than Rise of Skywalker. So we're doing pretty good. On the good, bad value, entertainment value, not a lot there. It's too competent. For the most part, not a funny bad.
Was with me earlier. Have you seen her?
Fuck you!
What? Why are you running? Please stop! I'm not gonna hurt you. Okay, please.
Get away from me!
What are you running?
We've got a lead.
Let's roll. I just need to make sure she's okay. Please. Was with me earlier. Have you seen her?
Fuck you!
If you're gonna party watch it, there's some drinking game ideas I have for you. Could be decent, and it's an hour and 6 minutes long. So what is it about? We open, post-apocalyptic, he's wandering the desert in like a hood, and there's like a doctor on the radio. Okay. Some world building, pretty quick. And then he walks into like just a diner that looks like it's just fine. It's not post-apocalyptic, it's kind of weird. It's like, it's just rural, it's not apocalypse. It's actually a pretty good setup. It really kind of lays out a good world in just a few minutes, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of interested in what's gonna go here. And he gets hit in the face with a shovel.
First Hue outbreak occurred. Officials say, with the Hue population still growing rapidly,
Get back!
I got him!
And we go back 1 year earlier, which is kind of, all right, you know, all right. So at this point, me and Erin, that is my wife who exists, and she goes to other videos. We stopped the movie, I think it was about 8 minutes in, to make some predictions. So we'd gone to 1 year earlier, and then in the very first scene, it's just like he's getting up, and he's brushing his teeth, and he has a ring in a box. It's like, oh, he's gonna propose, okay. So our predictions were basically, his fiance is gonna get kidnapped. Rest of the movie is going to be him trying to rescue his kidnapped fiance. We made some predictions for the number of shootouts with guns and car chases, and we were pretty off on that. No car chases in the whole movie. How long into the movie it would be before we get back to that opening? Erin thought about midway through the film. I thought it was going to be late, like last act, maybe 1, 2 scenes. It's like a Fight Club kind of book ending. And the answer is, you really don't ever get there. There's one scene at the very, very end, which I think is after he gets hit in the face in the shovel and is captured. And that's not even really a scene. He's just kind of delivering voiceover narration that's spooky and setting up a sequel. And I think this is clearly because shooting post-apocalyptic scenes is going to be harder. As you can see with the fact that their post-apocalyptic diner is just like a diner. So here's some drinking game ideas. Number 1, drink anytime there's a scene in a car. And again, no car chases. But there's lots of scenes in cars, tons of them. And 2, cell phone calls. Anytime, you know, hey, we got to talk about, I'm going to propose to my fiance. And, oh, hey, mom, I'm going to propose. Mom, hey, brother, the proposal's coming up. Another thing that they lean on too much on this is showing the news. Now, granted, you know, this was something they could shoot probably in a day and then like intersperse it throughout the film. It's a lot of the world building is done through these news clips, see the news on TV. But it's too much. It's kind of hacky. And then you're going to have some pleasant surprises. What happens? The news lady, we then see her in real life, and she's in a car.
What took you so long?
I had to finish the broadcast.
It's the end of the damn world, and you're in there playing Mrs. Humanitarian.
It's great. Also, there's a part where we're already like laughing because there's too many news scenes, and then there's like news printed and put on the wall. What do we do? So in the beginning of the chronological story, when he's about to propose to his fiance, the world is a little weird. There's like some sort of bioterror suspected something, and like Europe is just like worried about terrorism or something. There's like an orange terror alert.
According to officials, the orange terror threat level still remains in effect today, and for the...
There's checkpoints to get to downtown Dallas. This all was shot in Dallas. It really kind of feels like something like post 9/11, like right after 9/11 when we're worried about, you know, the orange alert from Homeland Security or something. Main character, he's going to propose, he's getting ready, he's at the restaurant, he forgets the ring, it's out in the car. He goes out to the car to get the ring, and then he's hit by just a random stray bullet, and then he bleeds red, and like that turns him into a hue. So the way you turn into a colored is you get shot with a stray bullet. It's not like you catch it. I don't really understand if that has meaning. I don't know. Like the fact that you get it and we don't know how or why doesn't add, like you could imagine that adding some kind of like randomness and chaos. And this, it's just like, what? I don't understand. And then after this, they're all treating it like it's this infectious disease. And it's like, well, why did he get it from a bullet? Did he have it already? And just like when he bled and it revealed it? I don't know. So this whole like racism, you know, colored hues, saturated, unsaturated, the black and white people don't want to catch it. Yet they also go out like bounty hunter style, like catching the colored people when they're trying not to catch the disease.
Yourself's a real slippery one back there now. Gotta make a little stop before we leave.
Honey!
Don't touch her! Don't touch her! Don't you touch her! She's infected!
She is our daughter!
She's a damn you!
One of the big missteps in this, it shows the bad guys, which the beginning, you're opening, you're just like, you're in the world, looking around, picking out details, and you feel like the movie's ahead of you, and you're like, you're like investing yourself and your energy, like trying to figure out what's going on. That's a satisfying thing. Don't go over the top with it, like Tenet, where you're like overloaded with, we just cut to the bad guys, having the bad guys in the boardroom, just talking creepy stuff, like, oh, it's phase 1, we've got to do this, now we're gonna do the virus, and it's like, kind of kills any tension or mystery about what's going on, because like you just cut to show the bad guys. Stick with your main characters, develop them, have the bad guys be, you know, in the shadows. You don't know what their plans are.
With phase 1 in motion, we can't afford to have any unnecessary attention to the company.
He's immune.
Sir.
Immune? You realize what this means? More of these Hughes continue to show up, jeopardize our entire plan. It's them. They're not gonna be happy.
And even though we show them a bunch, some really don't ever know what they're doing, why. It never really pays off. So the good guy, whose name is Isaac, and he's, after he's shot, he's like in the hospital, and they're like, he's like patient zero. He's the first person in America, I think, with color. And so everyone's like worried about that. Meanwhile, his brother, who's like this big bodybuilder dude, the bad guy, doesn't send a henchman. The bad guy himself shows up in the backseat of his car. The classic, I'm just gonna sit in the backseat of your car, wait for you to get in. Don't know how effective that is in real life. Anyway, he waits for him to get in. He shoots him in the neck with this injection thing and then just talks creepy to him. And that like brainwashes him into racism. So the like message of this movie is if you get an injection, you become racist against colors who have the disease. I'm getting tons of weird COVID vibes. And at this point, we were like, okay, so this movie, Prime Video, whatever, new releases in December of 2020. You know, this was maybe a spring, summer of COVID kind of movie. And as this movie's going along, you know, it's about virus, like bioterror virus. And there's a lot of like masks because people don't want to catch it. There's lots of scenes in like a hospital, which is a good set. They like shot in a real hospital. They shoot in a real ambulance. So there's some good like production quality. But there's a lot of scenes where people are masked. And you're like, okay, it could be that they're writing around this limitation of it. They're doing it during COVID. And so masks. Why are they black and white? And then these people become color, become hue, become saturated. What's going on? What is the meaning behind this? And so we're starting to think like, is this an anti-mask thing or a pro-mask thing? Is it about living in Texas while there are all these anti-maskers around that are like, COVID's fake or something? And they're like racist against people who wear masks? Anyway, so the brother, he gets injected and the vaccine turns him into a racist. Okay, so something's going on there. He then goes and shoots the fiance. So he just like gets brainwashed into becoming like a Terminator. But there's also like scenes where he's like stuck in a programming loop, just like Arnold in Terminator 3. So that happens.
I have to live! Run! 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 Run!
I can't leave
Run!
you like this!
Vic!
I can't leave you
Run!
like this!
Vic!
Stop it!
So there's this whole thing about people don't want to become hues. They don't want to become saturated coloreds. It's not clear why, because it's not like they're sick. Like he's just fine. So it's not like an illness that if you're a color, you have this illness. They just look weird. So maybe that's the message is like, they're all just afraid of people who look different. So maybe it's about like immigration it's in Texas. I don't know. And so they're all like worried about catching it and they're like, hating on the Hughes. But then like all kinds of random people are just like, I'm gonna become a bounty hunter now and like catch them and like wrangle them up. It's like, if you're afraid of catching it, why are you unmasked just like accosting these people on the street and like grabbing them and throwing them in your car? One hilarious thing, these saturated people, when they're trying to hide like in plain sight, they wear like giant, they like completely cover themselves and stuff. And it's so obvious because they're in Texas in the summer and no one is covering their faces at all. And then these dudes walk around with like towels on their heads and you're like, obviously you're like, that's so freaking obvious. No one else is doing that. Why would they not notice that? Okay, so it turns out the Hughes are immune to this bioterror weapon that the bad guys are planning on doing something with, like wiping out humanity or to rebuild the world or something. Dude with his henchmen, they're mad because like the Hughes are immune to it. So my guess is that in future stories, sequels, which he wants to make a sequel, Dakota Magazine, something like that. Dakota Magazine wants to make a sequel, and I think where it's going, saturated people are ostracized and everyone like thinks that they're bringing an illness or something, but it turns out they're immune to the virus. So I think the bad guys launch their virus bioweapon attack, but they're immune, and so they become like the superheroes of the world because like they're immune to it and they can help fight. And so we like learn from each other, except that doesn't happen in this movie. It doesn't get there. This movie really feels like half a movie, which makes sense because it's an hour and 6 minutes long. So is it a COVID movie? We've got like a vaccine that brainwashes you. We've got people wearing masks all the time, hysteria about other people who have a disease. It's Texas in the summer. It feels very much like it's saying something about it. And it's about a bioterror weapon. And it's like, oh, an engineered...
Is a liberal hoax. Corona is a liberal hoax. Dr. Fauci, what we gonna do?
Things are about to get a little bit crazy.
A lot of things making you think like this. Someone is trying to do something about COVID. I have no idea what, but they're trying. But the answer is no, it's not a COVID movie because they were shooting it in like 2018 or 2017. Unrelated, just happened to come out on Prime this year. And so what is the color saturated, unsaturated really about? What is the colors about? The answer, I think, is that it's just trying to be about race. And it doesn't really have anything sophisticated to say about it. It's just people don't like people who look different. And that's really it. One thing you can do, because you have, like, you can catch it, is you could have someone who's like super anti-colored and then they turn colored and then, oh my God, they see the world differently now. South Park did it over here, look.
Ginger kids are born with a disease which causes very light skin, red hair, and freckles. Ah, nasty, yuck! This disease is called gingivitis. Because their skin is so light, ginger kids must avoid the sun, not unlike vampires.
There's plenty of other movies that have done stuff with black and white with bits of color or switching from black and white to color. You know, there's Schindler's List, which does it funnier than this.
You need a secretary, pick one. You have to choose.
Big smile, big smile.
Oh Lucky Man, Wizard of. In my notes it says Wizard of. Memento does it. It also reminds you of a Book of Eli, where it's, but the big one I think of is Pleasantville.
There's a place where life is simple. People are perfect.
Pleasantville is set inside a fictional 50s, 60s TV show, and for Tobey Maguire's character, it's this like utopian, make America great again kind of place. But for others, it's like dystopian. It's this whitewashed, phony, everyone's pretending to be happy, Stepford Wives kind of place that's covering up for the fact that this is going on at the same time as like the civil rights movement, lynchings, political assassinations, and we're just like pretending none of it's happening. It also questions the ideal itself of let's go back to the 50s, it's the perfect life. And then you look at this place and you wonder like, what actually makes people happy? Does it come from having some like picturesque life, living in a Norman Rockwell painting? Or does it come through struggle and goals and adversity? I mean, would you enjoy playing a video game in which like no matter what you do, you win and there's no stakes? It's basically a treatise against the participation trophy. Pleasantville is Tobey Maguire's comfort sitcom. Like instead of facing life, he binge watches the shit out of it. So if you were to remake Pleasantville today, instead of doing like a black and white to color thing, I think it would be you get beamed like inside the office and deal with Kevin. And then like you and your PJs and your chip crumbs and your flabby ass have to live inside the office in Scranton, and you're not allowed to leave the building other than to like go to the parking lot or go on a one-way 5K or the Scranton Chili's.
It wasn't me.
So there's a lot going on thematically, and scenes really take on more meaning. For example, Tobey Maguire's character thinks change is bad. He wants everything to stay the same. Thinks they're destroying Pleasantville. So it's about this like status quo versus rocking the boat, and that has a lot more deeper meaning. But in Monochrome-gasm, it really doesn't have much to say about that. There's not like an opposing side to colored people are bad and let's keep separate. So here's a screenwriting lesson for you. The bad guys should at least have some kind of case to make that you can kind of see their perspective. Maybe they're wrong, but still they're making some kind of case. Whereas here it's just they're racists and it's awful. So for Monochrome, the Chrome-gasm, hey, it's bad when rednecks in the South hate colored people. So it's on the right side of history. According to my wife Erin, the worst part of the movie is the end credits, because that's when the director's band starts playing, I think. Erin said that this felt like a pilot, and it would be better if it was a pilot, and I think that's right, because it really sets up a lot of things without answering many questions. But if it was a pilot, you'd go, okay, like I can kind of imagine a series kind of building on this. You don't have to answer every question in the pilot, right? But as a movie, it doesn't really feel very satisfactory. Which brings me to the tricky dick joint of it all. That is to say, it's a screenplay written by Richard Nixon. It's a Watergate. The cover-up is worse than the crime. Get it? No, okay, you don't? All right, so here's what I mean. So say you're making a film and you've got a low budget, you've got limitations, you can't just do whatever you want, right? You decide, we're gonna cover up this limitation with this other choice, and that cover-up is worse than the crime you're covering up to begin with. There's like 40 minutes of story, maybe 35, 40 minutes. If you just made it 40 minutes and called it a pilot, it would be pretty good. But instead, just trying to stretch it out, scenes take way too long. People are like, hey, how are you? I'm good. It's the classic thing students do when I'm grading essays. Look, it was 10 pages, I swear. I'll tell Dakota Magazine the same thing I tell my students, which is if you don't have a fluffed out paper and it's a little short, that's still gonna be better than a fluffy long one where I'm just bored the whole time. So you're taking something you could have that's interesting and it's 40 minutes and we're in and we're out, call it a pilot, great.
Bad?
It could be worse. You know, they should really just take these checkpoints. 6 weeks and nothing's happened yet?
They're probably just being cautious.
Yeah, that or they know something else. Well, I'm up. Talk to you tonight.
Yeah, see you tonight. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, bye.
So overall, would I recommend? Not really. It's okay. It's fairly competent at most things. Kind of impressive for the budget and a lot of the sets and the props. Good job. But the writing's just not there, and it's really kind of fluffed out to 1 hour and 6. The writing has quite a few kind of cliche things. It's, you know, he's gonna propose. Oh no, the bad thing happened. And then just many scenes of henchmen talking to the bad boss. So like again, like lean into what your limitations are. What can you do for no budget? People in a room talking. You can do tons of that. You know, car chases and over-the-top action and set pieces. You can't really do so much. And this movie does a pretty good job of avoiding those, but there still ends up being a lot of like action-y sequences where it's just like, I'm gonna hold a gun on you for a while, and not a lot of shooting. At no point in this film do two people shoot guns at each other, so it's at least got that going for it, I guess. They don't just go to the woods for 90 minutes and call that post-apocalyptic. It's the desert and not 90 minutes. So one of my biggest suggestions, I suppose, you've got people hiding, you saturated. Have long scenes where these people are trying to avoid being found. Think opening of Inglourious Bastards. Cut to that. And now cut to opening of this movie where it's like obvious because he's wearing a head covering and no one else is. And it's over pretty fast. Like there's not, you know, they're not hiding people. He could have been hiding a girl or something. But overall, Monochrome and Chromism, technically pretty good, pretty sound, good effort. Make it a pilot. And it would have been a lot more exciting, I think, as a pilot. And maybe you then get funding to go, like, make an episode 2? Monochrome the Chromism. It's like American trucks. It's just covered in fake chrome for no reason. And now, for no reason, here's some real chrome stuff. Have you ever seen better clickbait in your life?
For example, it's toxic, carcinogenic, highly corrosive, and potentially explosive. And it has a really nice color that's extremely close to blood.
No, go lay down. Go lay down.
Make me constantly afraid of killing myself and everyone around me. In general, I've always found it exciting to work with the more dangerous chemicals.
Well, let's talk about, man, this is a mouthful. Monochrome, the chromism.
Yep.
Say that 3 times fast, right?
Right. It is a mouthful. That's for sure.
Concentrated sulfuric acid. All of this acid was made a long time ago when I distilled it from drain cleaner that I got from the hardware store. And if ice-cold acid isn't used, it can sometimes get out of control. It can also cause the chromochloride to start boiling on its own, which was something I really wanted to avoid. So, I added the rest of the cold sulfuric acid that I needed, and I didn't bother doing it through an addition funnel. I just dumped it all in.
We will fight for equality. Will you join us or hunt us? Yes, I was the first. I will not be the last.